They never expected Earth to survive the culling. The Zarn Dominion, self-declared rulers of the galaxy, sent their fleet not to conquer Earth, but to erase it. The first attack hit without warning. No ultimatum. No declarations. Just fire from the sky and a wave of silence that followed. Cities turned to dust. Families vanished beneath ash and rubble. The oceans boiled in some places. In others, the air itself turned to poison. The message was clear. Earth was a threat, not because of its weapons or its technology, but because of its spirit. Colonel Jack Hadrien was in orbit when it began. His station, Prometheus, floated just outside lunar range, an obsolete relic of a Cold War that never reached the stars. He watched his home burn through cold, reinforced glass, powerless to do anything but scream until his throat bled. His wife and son were down there. So was his brother, his mother, his childhood memories. Everything. Gone. What remained of Earth was not civilization. It was vengeance clothed in skin and rage. The Zarn expected compliance after their show of power. Instead, they found resistance unlike anything they'd faced in 10,000 years of conquest. It started with scattered colonies. Mars, Europa, Titan, all human settlements. The survivors rallied under one banner. Not the UN, not EarthGov, something new, something feral. They called it Legion 1. And Jack Hadrien, reborn in fire and loss, became its voice. He stood before them all. Soldiers, engineers, farmers, orphans. They came to make an example of us, he said. We'll make an example of them. No applause, no chants, just silent nods and hardened eyes. Grief had carved humanity into weapons. Legion 1 didn't just fight back, they hunted. Every Zarn ship, every outpost, every trace of their presence near human territory was wiped clean, not with diplomacy, with precision. Humanity didn't want peace, it wanted justice, raw and loud and permanent. Jack's team, Unit 13, became legend in under 3 months, 12 men and women, all with personal scores to settle. No one questioned their methods. Not even when the footage leaked of them spacing surrendered Zarn officers. Mercy is a luxury of the innocent, Jack said when questioned. He hadn't been innocent since the sky turned red over San Antonio. Now, 50 light-years from Earth, Legion 1 prepared for their greatest operation yet. The strike on Zarn's capital moon, Haleith Prime. It was a fortress, a shining jewel, the seat of an empire that had enslaved 100 worlds. It was also the place where the order to annihilate Earth had been signed. Jack walked the decks of the Black Hammer, his flagship. The crew saluted not because of protocol, but because they feared and respected the man who had nothing left to lose. In the war room, maps flickered across the screen. Points of entry, shield weaknesses, guard rotations. 2 days. His XO said. Then we drop. Jack said nothing. His eyes were locked on a small, blinking dot, Haleith Prime's civilian dome. Innocents, children, families, the same kind of people Earth once had. He clenched his jaw. The Zarn didn't hesitate. Why should he? Prep the warheads, he said. But sir, what about... They had a choice, just like we did. Now they'll know what we chose. The room went silent. The galaxy watched from the shadows. And for the first time in history, the rulers of the stars, beings who had never feared anything, felt it in their bones. Fear of humans. Because we didn't beg for peace. We chose vengeance. The hum of the Black Hammer's engines was steady. Too steady. Jack Hadrien paced the bridge with slow, measured steps, the kind that echoed longer than they should have. A captain's footsteps shouldn't sound like Judgment Day, but on this ship, under Jack's command, everything was heavy. Every movement carried the weight of revenge. Screens glowed in the dim light, tactical projections, enemy fleet positions, countdown timers. In 41 hours, Legion 1 would pierce Haleith Prime's defense grid and descend on the capital moon like a hurricane with a personal grudge. There was no room for error, no time for hesitation. Jack's thoughts drifted. Not to tactics, not to losses, but to his son, Leo. 7 years old when he died in the first wave. He used to draw starships on the walls with a marker, saying he'd grow up to be a space pilot like his dad. Jack never erased those drawings. When he found their apartment in ruins during a recon pass, he didn't cry. He just stared at the blackened wall and promised the ghosts that he'd make the galaxy choke on its arrogance. "Sir," came a voice behind him. Lieutenant Granger, nervous as usual. Young. Too young. He wasn't made for this kind of war, but no one left alive was. "What is it?" "We picked up an encrypted signal from Haleith Prime. Civilian broadcast. It's, a plea for negotiation." Jack turned his head, slowly. "What did they offer?" Granger swallowed. "They want a ceasefire, a delegation. They're claiming the Zarn High Council acted without full approval." Jack stepped forward and tapped the console. The message played, a soft, slithering voice in Universal Standard. "To the human warlord commanding the abomination known as Legion 1, we acknowledge your pain. Your retaliation has been noted. Let us now speak of peace. There has been enough suffering." Jack shut it off. "They're trying to stall," he muttered. "Buy time to evacuate their leaders. Cowards always want to talk when the knife's at their throat." "But, sir, they sounded desperate," Granger said carefully. "There might be children down there, families, maybe even some humans who were taken during the first sweeps." Jack's eyes locked onto Granger's. "My son was 7. They didn't hesitate to vaporize him. You want me to hesitate now?" Granger paled. "No, sir. I just—" "Get out." Granger left without another word. Jack turned toward the stars beyond the glass. In the distance, Haleith Prime hung like a jewel set in a noose. Cities glittered. Life pulsed beneath its atmospheric shield. It was beautiful. But so was Earth once. Before fire rained from above, his hand curled into a fist. On the moon's surface, the Zarn High Council convened in panic. 12 elders, each a living fossil of an empire that had never known fear, sat coiled in anxiety. Their chair claws clicked against obsidian stone as they debated in shrill, layered tongues. "He will not stop," hissed Siratol, the elder of interstellar control. "Every outpost we held has been erased. Every attempt at parley, rejected." "You said humans were weak," spat another. "You told us they'd beg, that their minds were too primitive for sustained war." Siratol's pupils shrank. "Their minds are not what we should have feared. It's their grief. It has no bottom. It just keeps digging." In the corner, a trembling aide brought data feeds, images of human warships decimating patrol fleets, footage of children crying over vaporized bodies, civilians torn apart in raids, except they were Zarn children this time. "They've turned our methods against us," whispered one of the younger counselors. "No," Siratol corrected. "They've refined them, made them personal. They are not fighting for territory. They are fighting for pain." The chamber fell into a tense, unnatural silence. Back aboard the Black Hammer, Jack sat alone in his quarters, staring at a cracked, hollow frame. Leo smiled back at him from years ago, next to his wife, holding a paper star in one hand and a model ship in the other. The boy had bright eyes, too bright for this world. Jack remembered telling him once, "Sometimes we have to fight to protect the good things." He never imagined those words would become the foundation for annihilation. The door buzzed. "It's me," came a voice. Sergeant Bell. "Come in." Bell was the only one who could speak freely to Jack. They served together since the Titan uprising. He'd lost his sister during the first Zarn strike, and had been with Jack on every mission since. Command Deck says the Cividome has over 6,000 non-combatants, mostly Zarn, but a few species we've never even cataloged. We sure we want to drop warheads there? Jack didn't answer. Bell took a breath. Look, I'm not saying they deserve mercy, but some of these species, hell, they might have been slaves themselves, caught in the Zarn machine like everyone else. Collateral. Yeah, but are we any different from the bastards we're fighting if we start justifying this? Jack's face was stone. We're already different. We didn't start this. We're just finishing it. Bell stared at him. You think Leo would be proud of what we're about to do? That hurt? Jack stood slowly, walked past Bell and opened a drawer. Inside were dog tags, burned, broken, melted. Each one belonged to someone they'd lost. He dropped them onto the table like broken teeth. I'm not doing this for pride, Jack said quietly. I'm doing this because we lost everything, and the universe laughed. Bell looked away. I'll have the team ready, he muttered, and left. In the Zarn civilian dome, panic spread like fire through the markets. Aliens of every shape and size tried to flee. Ships clogged the hangars. Security forces, never trained for internal collapse, couldn't control the riots. Among the chaos was a human woman, not a soldier, not a spy, a mother, captured during the first attack on Earth. Her name was Nora. She hadn't seen the sky in 5 years. Her daughter had been taken from her, re-educated, raised to speak Zarn dialects. She barely remembered English now. And yet, when Nora heard the alarms, when she saw the panicked Zarn broadcasting messages to Jack Hadrien, she smiled. They're coming, she whispered to her daughter. Your people, they're finally coming. Her daughter looked up, confused. The soldiers who burned cities? No, Nora said. The ones who remember what we lost, and what we became because of it. Hours later, the strike teams assembled. The Black Hammer's launch bays thrummed with energy. Dropships prepped. Pilots checked weapons. Soldiers kissed dog tags and whispered names to ghosts. Jack stood at the front of it all, his armor black as the void, his eyes cold as Titan ice. Listen up, he said. This is it. No retreat, no surrender. We're not here to claim land. We're not here for diplomacy. We're here because they thought we were animals, because they thought fear would make us kneel. Well, now they get to kneel. The crew roared. He raised one arm. Operation Judgment begins now. And the dropships fell like thunder into the skies of Haleith Prime. The atmosphere around Haleith Prime didn't burn. It shattered. The Legion's dropships tore through it like serrated blades, leaving trails of fire and fury in their wake. Every vessel carried death forged in grief. Warriors who had nothing left to mourn, only names to avenge. Jack Hadrien stood in the lead ship, his face lit orange by the flames licking across the viewport. No helmet, no mask, just a man who wanted the enemy to see his eyes as they died. Behind him, Unit 13 geared up in silence. No one spoke. No one joked. This wasn't camaraderie. This was ritual. Revenge didn't need words. The ship shuddered violently as anti-air fire peppered the drop zone, but Jack didn't flinch. He'd died already, when Earth fell. This was just the long, drawn-out process of dragging his killers into hell with him. 5 minutes to breach, the pilot barked. Jack's voice was ice. Full deployment. Leave no structure intact, no power grid, no emergency channels. We're erasing them, completely. Yes, sir. Below them, Haleith Prime's surface burst into chaos. The Zarn military scrambled to respond, but their forces were scattered, confused. The dome city, a marvel of ancient alien engineering, lit up with defense grids too slow to track the incoming hailstorm of vengeance. Jack pulled his rifle from the rack and slung it over his back. "Let's finish what they started," he muttered, more to himself than anyone. The Black Hammer's command deck relayed real-time feeds. The operation unfolded with deadly precision. Drones dropped payloads on the communication towers. EMP bursts swept through their atmospheric controls. The entire moon began to flicker. One by one, lights died, and with them, hope. Civilians screamed through the broken streets. Shops collapsed. Fuel lines ignited. It wasn't just a military raid, it was planetary deconstruction. Jack's dropship tore through a shattered skyscraper and landed in the middle of the city's core district, cutting straight through a public plaza once reserved for festivals and celebrations. Statues of Zarn elders cracked and collapsed beneath the shockwave. The ramp opened. Unit 13 descended into the chaos, armored shadows with human faces twisted by loss. Jack fired first. An elite Zarn soldier crumpled before he even raised a weapon. The rest of the team followed suit. Precision wasn't necessary, only eradication. One building after another was breached, cleared, and left burning. On a side street, Jack cornered a Zarn civilian family, 2 adults and a small child huddled beneath a collapsed walkway. They trembled at the sight of him. The father figure raised a shaking hand, pleading in broken standard. "Please, no fight, no weapon, family only, no war." Jack's finger twitched on the trigger. He remembered Leo, small, helpless, smiling with a paper star in his hand. He turned his rifle slightly, not away, just lowered. He stared at them, his eyes unmoving. "Run," he said flatly. The family didn't wait. They bolted, dragging the child. Jack didn't fire. He didn't feel merciful. He just didn't feel anything. Bell called in on comms. "Dome 6 cleared. Dozens dead. Found a human woman and her kid. Says she's been a prisoner since the first strike." Jack's brow tightened. "Where is she?" "Coming your way. She asked for you by name." Jack moved through the rubble until he saw her. Nora. Pale, thin, with dirt-streaked cheeks and haunted eyes. The little girl beside her clung to her leg, uncertain whether to smile or cry. "Colonel Hadrien," Nora said, voice cracking. "You really came." Jack stared at her. "I thought all the Earth prisoners were dead." "They told us we were," she said bitterly. "For 5 years they made us believe Earth didn't exist anymore, that the Zarn had saved us from our own destruction. And the kid. She's mine. They reprogrammed her, gave her a new name. I kept whispering her real one every night until she started remembering. She's human. She just forgot how to be." Jack knelt beside the girl. She looked up at him, confused but curious. "Do you know who you are?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "They said I was born on the moon." He touched her shoulder gently. "You were born on Earth. Your people didn't die. We just took our time deciding how hard we were going to hit back." Nora's eyes welled. "There are more. Thousands, scattered, angry, and we're not stopping." Bell stepped beside them. "What do we do with her?" Jack looked back toward the horizon. Explosions dotted the cityscape. Screams echoed in the wind. "Get her on a medevac! She's done her time in hell!" Hours passed. The dome continued to fall. Military targets were wiped clean, and infrastructure collapsed in a coordinated, brutal pattern. Jack and Unit 13 moved deeper into the city, now heading toward the command spire, home of the Zarn High Council. Intelligence had finally confirmed it. Most of the elders were still there, still hiding, still trying to call off a war they started too late. The path to the spire was lined with wreckage, streets broken in half. Corpses, alien and human, burned or buried under collapsed steel. This wasn't a battlefield. It was a graveyard. and Jack Hadrien walked it like a priest of ruin. A sniper took a shot from a shattered tower. Missed. Jack didn't. The Zarn fell from the rafters, half his head missing. Bell nudged Jack's shoulder. You see what I see? In the shadows of a crumbling bridge, children, Zarn, and other races huddled near a fire. Not soldiers, not fighters, just scared. Council's moving civvies into the outer sectors, Bell muttered. Human shields. Not unexpected, Jack growled. We keep going. You sure? Jack hesitated. His fingers flexed on the grip of his rifle. The firelight flickered on his face, revealing the cracks under the surface. War doesn't ask permission, he said. It just keeps going until someone's left to tell the story. At the command spire, the Zarn High Council waited like rats in a sinking ship. They'd never imagined a moment like this, cornered by a species they had once dismissed as feral. And now, the feral ones had learned strategy. Syratol's eyes twitched as she watched the human feed. She saw their dropships, their flamethrowers, their silence. They're not negotiating, she whispered. They don't want prisoners. They don't want reparations. They want extinction, another counselor whispered. Not of our race, Syratol corrected bitterly. Of our legacy, of our pride, of our immunity. They looked to the stars like children seeking gods, but the only god coming was human. Jack reached the spire by nightfall. The skies burned overhead, and Legion forces sealed off every exit. No one escaped, not this time. At the base of the tower, Jack stopped. Bell looked at him. We breaching, Jack stared up at the looming structure, glass and black stone, sharp like a dagger to the stars. He took a breath. Then he gave the order. Light it. Charges placed. Timers set. They didn't storm the tower. They erased it. The explosion shattered half the district. The High Council was atomized in seconds. No trial, no broadcast, no last words. Their final legacy was dust. As dawn approached, Haleith Prime was no longer a capital moon. It was a cratered ruin, a grave where arrogance once stood tall. Back aboard the Black Hammer, Jack stood on the observation deck. Bell joined him. We did it. They're gone. Jack didn't nod, didn't smile. War isn't about winning anymore, he said softly. It's about who gets to end it on their terms. And us? Jack closed his eyes. We ended it. Now the galaxy knows what happens when humans are pushed too far. Bell looked out at the remains of Haleith Prime. Think they'll come for revenge? They'll try, Jack said. But now, they'll do it while looking over their shoulder. The crater where Haleith Prime once stood still glowed in infrared. From orbit, it looked like a festering wound in the stars, a perfect circle of ruin, its once proud spires turned to molten shadows. There were no distress beacons, no emergency broadcasts. The Zarn Empire's heart was gone. But the galaxy wasn't silent. Across hundreds of star systems, the footage went viral. Not officially, not through the sanctioned relays, but through whispers, leaks, hackers, refugees. 1,000 alien species watched in horror as the videos played. Human dropships storming the skies, civilian districts turned to rubble, the High Council's tower erupting into a sunburst of fire and debris. They watched Jack Hadrien stare into a camera, eyes void of apology, and say, "This is what happens when you burn our world." And they understood something ancient and primal. Humans weren't just fighting, they were hunting. On a mining colony called Kira Nul, far from the war's front lines, a Zarn administrator named Tesric moved through the industrial fields with shaking limbs. The facility had remained untouched, neutral, non-strategic. Yet every worker carried fear like a parasite on their back. Tesric stopped when he saw the mural. Someone had painted it overnight. A crude human skull with red streaks bursting from the eyes, and the words in broken standard beneath. Vengeance will find you. The other workers whispered about it, refused to work until it was scrubbed off. But no one touched it. Not even Tesric. He ordered extra guards posted, doubled the perimeter scans, and had a gun in his belt for the first time in 20 years. Because if Earth had taught the galaxy anything, it was this. You don't need numbers to start a war. You just need grief deep enough to turn into rage. On the Black Hammer, Jack Hadrien sat in silence. The war room was quiet now. No urgent missions, no enemy fleets. Just the slow, eerie crawl of space. Bell entered with a data pad. We're getting reports from 17 sectors. Zarn colonies are evacuating. Some systems are trying to break away entirely. The entire structure's collapsing. Jack didn't move. Good. Bell hesitated. There's more. We're getting requests. From who? Species that were under the Zarn's boot for generations. Slavers, corporate syndicates, puppet governments. Now they want to join us. Call it solidarity. Or maybe they just don't want to be next. Jack leaned forward. They think we're building something. Are we? Jack didn't answer. Because he didn't know. All he'd wanted was justice. Cold and permanent. Now they were calling him a liberator. A revolutionary. Some even said emissary of the earth flame, like he was a prophet bringing fire to the stars. He didn't feel like a prophet. He felt like a man who buried his son in ash and never stopped digging the grave wider. Nora stood in the ship's medical bay, watching her daughter, finally clean, finally safe, draw pictures on a tablet. Stars, spaceships, her mother, a man she'd only met once but now idolized. Is that Colonel Hadrien? Nora asked gently. The girl nodded. He's scary, but I think he's sad. Nora knelt beside her. He's both. Some men become dangerous when they're broken, but some become protectors. Her daughter looked confused. Did he protect Earth? Nora bit her lip. He came too late for that. But he protected what was left of it. She looked through the window, toward the command deck, toward Jack. Jack called a war council the next day. Not for strategy, but for future. Representatives from the surviving colonies, Mars, Titan, Ganymede, even a few ships from Alpha Centauri, beamed in via hologram. The bridge was full of hard faces, men and women who had led bloody revolts, sabotage missions, assassinations. None of them were diplomats. We've won the first war, Jack said, but now they'll come in a different way. General Strake, an old Mars separatist, snorted. Let them. We've got momentum. Jack's eyes narrowed. They won't use fleets this time. They'll use fear, isolation, politics. They'll turn other races against us, brand us as monsters. We are monsters, someone muttered. We burned a moon. Jack didn't deny it. I won't apologize for it, he said, but I also won't let this become a crusade. We didn't fight to rule. We fought to make sure no one ever does to us what they did again. Another voice piped up, one of the Titan commandants. And what about all these colonies asking to join us now? You want to build a federation? An empire of vengeance? Jack stood, looming tall. Number one, I want to build a wall, one that no alien, no invader, no empire ever crosses again. If they want to stand beside us, they'll bleed with us. If not, they stay out. Silence. Then slow nods. Agreement. Not out of unity, but exhaustion. No one had the stomach for another grand vision. They just wanted to survive and never bow again. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the old powers watched. The Zathari conglomerate closed its trade routes with Earth colonies. The Rin Dominion declared neutrality. The Korak Enclave began arming up, quietly forming fleets not aimed at the Zarn, but at Earth's satellites. In the shadows, fear twisted into planning, and in deep orbit around the ruins of Haleith Prime, something stirred. A ship. Small, stealth class. Not Zarn. Inside, a council of alien operatives studied footage of Jack Hadrien's face over and over again. "This is the human problem," one said. "They never learn balance. Either they kneel or they burn. And this one doesn't kneel. Number, which means if we want peace, we have to kill him." Back on the Black Hammer, Jack stood alone in the observation deck again. He no longer looked at stars with wonder. Only calculation. Bell joined him after a long silence. "We're getting word from the Andor Belt. Someone's been assassinating human envoys." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "Not Zarn. We think it's a splinter group, multi-species. Could be a coalition forming to neutralize us. You." Jack chuckled dryly. "Let them come." Bell's jaw tightened. "We've become a symbol, Jack. You especially. And symbols get targeted." Jack looked at him. "They burned our world. We made them watch theirs fall. Now they want to erase the memory of what we did? You see the irony?" "What?" "We gave them peace for centuries. They gave us silence and ash. Now we give them vengeance, and they beg for peace." Bell said nothing. Because what could he say? Humanity hadn't asked for this role. It had earned it the hard way. Deep in his quarters, Jack sat at a terminal. He opened a file, one he hadn't looked at in months. Leo's last recorded message. "Hi, Dad. Mom said you're saving the world. I made you something." A drawing, stars, a spaceship. The word home scribbled in a child's shaky handwriting. Jack stared at it. Because even now, after the war, after the blood, he didn't feel like he was home. He felt like he was still in orbit, still waiting to fall. The first assassination attempt came 6 days after the Haleith Prime strike. It happened on Cora Station, neutral territory orbiting a dead star, where Earth's new alliance was holding fragile talks with former Zarn subjugated races. The air was stale, the corridors gray and rusted, and the delegates wore fake smiles stretched thin by fear. Everyone was watching the humans now, not to see if they would attack again, but to see if they could be reasoned with. Jack Hadrien didn't care for any of it. He sat in the chamber's high seat, armor unpolished, jaw locked, eyes dead. He didn't speak much, just stared. And people listened. The delegate from Drevna 3, a reptilian creature named Koshmar, had just finished thanking him, nervously, for liberating the galaxy from tyranny, when the lights cut out. 3 seconds of black. Then a scream. Then the flash of a plasma round, followed by another. Bell tackled Jack to the ground as 2 guards lit up in a cloud of energy and flesh. Chaos erupted. Delegates ducked. Soldiers fired blind. The scent of scorched ozone filled the air. By the time the emergency lights kicked in, 5 were dead. Jack wasn't one of them. He stood up calmly, dusted his armor, and walked toward the body of the assassin, a slim humanoid wrapped in reflective mesh, face burned off by counterfire. Bell approached with his rifle drawn. "You all right?" Jack didn't answer. He looked at the charred face, trying to find something. A hint, a clue. But there was nothing left but teeth and melted skin. "Not Zarn," Bell muttered. "Too small. No implants. Not military either." Jack knelt and picked something from the floor. A pendant. It bore no insignia, just a crude carving of 3 rings overlapping. Jack held it up. "Who the hell are these people?" The intel came slowly. Too slowly. The symbol was traced to a secretive movement spreading across several outer systems, a rogue coalition called the Concord of Balance. It wasn't a government. It wasn't even military. It was an ideology, one born from fear, from the ashes of Haleith Prime, from the images of humans burning cities, killing civilians, refusing to negotiate. The Concord's message was simple. If humans won't stop themselves, we must. They called Jack Hadrien the Dark Star, the beginning of humanity's descent into galactic dominance. They weren't wrong. In the command deck of the Black Hammer, the atmosphere shifted, not from grief, from doubt. Reports trickled in every hour. Raids on human outposts, sabotage on trade ships, diplomats murdered en route to peace summits. One group even hijacked a relief vessel and spaced the entire crew, leaving the hull marked with the 3 rings. Jack paced in front of the holo map. His officers watched him with a kind of reverence that bordered on fear. "We created a vacuum," Bell said. "The Zarn are gone, and now every broken little power wants to fill the gap." Jack looked up. "Then we start crushing them one by one." Someone, Lieutenant Morin, shifted uncomfortably. "That's escalation, sir." Jack's eyes snapped to him. "We already escalated when Earth fell. Everything after that is just cleanup." Morin looked like he wanted to protest, but stayed quiet. Bell spoke carefully. "The Conquered's not just enemies. Some of them were allies once. Scientists, colonists, even a few Earthborn. They think you're too dangerous to let live." "Good," Jack said, voice cold. "Let them keep thinking. While they run, we'll be arming." He stared at the map. Flashpoints everywhere, red dots spreading like a virus. "This is the war after the war," he muttered, "and we're still not done bleeding." A week later, the second attempt came. This time it was personal. Jack was alone in his quarters, standing in front of Leo's drawing again. The soft scribbles, the misspelled word HOM, the stars. He heard the door slide open and didn't even turn. "Security's tighter than ever. You'd need clearance just to breathe near my door." The voice behind him wasn't Bell's. It was soft, female, cold. "That's why I came alone." Jack turned slowly. The woman standing there was Zarn hybrid, rare. Her skin bore faint ridges, her eyes luminous, but her form was lean, familiar, human in posture, weapon drawn. "You're conquered," he said. She nodded. "You ended Haleith Prime. We intend to end you." Jack stared at her hand. It trembled. "You lost someone," he said. "Didn't you?" "My brother, civilian engineer. He died trying to help evacuate children when your firebombs dropped." Jack nodded slowly. "So kill me." She hesitated. He stepped forward. "Do it." She raised the pistol, hand shaking harder, and couldn't. "You're not the only one with ghosts," he said. Then Bell stormed in, too late, and tackled her. She dropped the pistol, didn't resist, just cried. "I was supposed to hate you," she whispered, "but all I see is someone who's already dead." Jack stood over her, silent. Then he walked out. In the medbay, Jack watched her through the glass. She didn't scream. She didn't curse. She didn't even look up. "She's not a soldier," Bell said. "She's just a message." Jack nodded. "The Conquered wants me scared. Or dead. Preferably both." Bell stepped closer. "Jack, you need to listen. There's talk on the colonies. Even among our own people. They think you're bringing this heat down on us. That maybe it's time to step back." Jack turned, sharply. "Step back from what?" "From being you." Jack's eyes narrowed. "You mean the man who stopped the extermination of our species? That's the one you want to silence? I mean the man who's becoming a target bigger than any fleet." Jack stared at him, long and hard, then turned away. "Tell the men to arm the strike cruisers. Conquered or not, we don't run from threats." Bell didn't move. "Understood, sir." That night, Jack didn't sleep. He sat alone in the gravity chamber, lights low, artificial stars spinning around him. He replayed the attack on Haleith Prime again. And again. He watched the flames, the collapsing spire, the bodies, then Leo's message. And for the first time since Earth's fall, Jack cried. Not because of guilt. Because he didn't feel anything anymore. And he knew, somewhere deep inside, the man who loved that little boy had burned up with him. The Black Hammer drifted in high orbit above Eros 9, a former Zarn-controlled refinery world now under Legion control. Below, human banners waved over burning slag towers and retooled factories. The air was heavy with smoke and victory, but above, in the cold dark of command, something deeper than fire brewed. Doubt. Jack Hadrien stood in front of the war table again, eyes locked on a string of red indicators that crept across the galactic border like poison vines. The Conquered has established 3 staging systems, Bell reported, his voice flat. We intercepted communications. They're coordinating with rogue human fleets, former EarthGov remnants, probably mercenaries now. Jack didn't flinch. And the colonies? Some are turning away from us, quietly. No declarations, but they're blocking transmissions. They're scared of retaliation, or scared of you. Jack didn't respond. Commander Strake, patched in from the Mars Forward Command, appeared on the main holo feed. His voice was steel. This is a cancer. The Conquered spreads lies, stirs fear, then uses it to justify attacks. We need to wipe out their central cells before more colonies defect. I agree, Jack said, but Bell stepped forward. Number, we don't know where their true command is. And some of their members? They're civilians, exiles, people who fought beside us when the Zarn fell. Traitors now, Jack replied coldly. Bell pushed harder. You can't erase every threat with missiles, Jack. Not when half of it looks like us. Jack's jaw tensed. There's no us anymore, Bell. Just those who remember Earth burning, and those who think we overreacted. The room chilled. Even through comms, Strake's face tensed at Jack's words. Something dangerous passed between them. An understanding. Bell saw it too. Something was cracking inside Legion 1. 3 days later, Jack's suspicions came true. The Conquered attacked Colony Verta 9, but not with ships, with ideas. Their agents slipped into the colony's communication network, broadcasting videos of Jack Hadrien's raids, his speeches, even manipulated footage of civilian casualties from Haleith Prime. They painted him not as a liberator, but a genocidal warlord. A tyrant in black armor, incapable of peace, addicted to war. It worked. The local governor shut down the Legion garrison's feed, refused to send reinforcements, declared Verta 9 a neutral humanitarian system. Jack read the statement with a clenched fist. We honor what Colonel Hadrien did to stop the Zarn, but his current actions no longer reflect the values of survival or peace. We seek a different future. He crushed the datapad in his hand. Back on the Black Hammer, the command deck buzzed with whispers. Jack walked through it like a ghost in armor. Silent. Heavy. Officers straightened at his presence, but their eyes betrayed something worse than fear. Wavering loyalty. He stepped into the strategy chamber where Bell stood waiting. Alone. You leaked the casualty footage, didn't you? Jack asked, without flinching. Bell didn't deny it. I thought if the colonies saw everything, the whole truth, they'd back off. Maybe force a sit-down, a peace. Jack took a step forward. We don't negotiate with those who kill our children, Bell. They didn't kill Leo, Bell said quietly. The Zarn did. And they're gone. So why are we still killing? Silence cracked like thunder between them. Jack's voice dropped. Because we don't get to live in the world Leo died in. We get to survive in the world that made it happen. Bell looked away. I didn't want to betray you, he said. But you've become something I don't understand anymore. Jack turned his back. You're relieved of duty. Bell blinked. What? Effective immediately. You're confined to quarters until further notice. Jack. If you speak again, I'll have you spaced. Go Bell left, slowly. No fight, no words, just pain. And that was when Jack knew. The war outside wasn't half as dangerous as the war inside. Hours later, the first strike hit. Not a missile, a virus. The Black Hammer's navigation went dark, mid-orbit. Engines stalled, gravity flickered. Half the lights died as internal systems scrambled under a foreign protocol. The security feed showed infiltrators on Deck 4. 3 masked figures in Concord armor, armed with plasma disruptors. They weren't here to take the ship. They were here to kill him. Jack didn't wait for the alert. He was already moving, rifle in hand, flanked by 2 guards. They passed body after body, officers cut down with precision, systems fried from inside. He reached the blast doors and stopped. On the wall, drawn in blood, were 3 circles. The Concord's mark. He ordered the doors open. The first agent barely had time to turn before Jack shot him point blank in the face. The second fired and grazed Jack's shoulder. He barely flinched. Shot her through the ribs. She fell, choking. The third was different. A human. Fully. And Jack recognized him. Lieutenant Morin. The one who had questioned him back in the strategy room. "You were Legion," Jack growled. "I am Legion," Morin spat, bleeding from the mouth. "The version that remembers why we fought. To stop monsters, not become them." Jack stepped closer. Did Leo deserve to burn? Morin flinched. "No." "Then don't ever tell me who the monster is." He fired. Point blank. The ship recovered after 10 hours of repair. The virus was contained. The infiltrators were purged. But something irreversible had happened. Jack Hadrien had killed one of his own. Some of the crew nodded in approval. Quietly. They feared the Concord's reach, but others stared at Jack like they didn't know him anymore. And maybe he didn't either. 2 days passed. Bell remained in confinement. No trial. Jack visited him once. No words. Just looked through the glass. Bell didn't stand. Didn't speak. He just stared at Jack's reflection and shook his head. The outer systems continued to fracture. Concord cells gained sympathy. They released manifestos, claiming they didn't want war, only balance. That humanity had gone too far, that Jack Hadrien was now a symbol of unchecked violence. He wasn't the sword. He was the sickness. And across the stars, even some humans started to believe them. Jack sat alone in the command chamber late one night. A bottle of Titan whiskey sat unopened on the table beside him. The stars outside flickered. Silent, endless, watching. He whispered to no one, "They want me dead because I made them afraid." He tapped the glass. Good. But his hands trembled, not from fear, from the weight, because being feared is power, but it's also a prison, and Jack Hadrien had built his out of bones. The coordinates came in quietly. A hacked data stream intercepted on the fringes of the Orion expanse, slipped into Black Hammer's mainframe through a dead relay satellite. No encryption, just one cold line of text and a set of numbers. Concord Prime, Last Refuge System, Cygnus Delta 6. Jack Hadrien stood over the terminal in his private quarters, alone, his face dim in the flicker of the code. He read it twice, then again, not because he didn't believe it, but because he knew what it meant. This wasn't a trap. It was an invitation. By dawn cycle, the Black Hammer was in full prep mode. Strike fleet mobilized, troop carriers fueled, stealth ships were dispatched ahead for deep scan verification, and the War Council, what remained of it, was summoned. The room felt smaller now. Strake, patched in from Mars again, Commander Thorne from Ganymede. A dozen others blinked in via holofeed, each one with the same wary expression. Jack stood at the head of the table, arms behind his back, the stubble on his face rougher, darker. "We found them," he said without preamble. "The Concord's main node, their fleet, their operatives, their propaganda farms, all of it. We strike now, fast, loud, and final." Thorne raised a brow. "You're proposing we commit half of our remaining forces to a system we haven't verified?" "It's verified," Jack snapped. "We lost too many to get these coordinates. This is the only window we'll get before they scatter again." Strake cleared his throat. "Even if it's real, and I'm not saying it's not, this isn't like Haleith Prime. Concord Prime isn't a military complex. It's a city, civilian-heavy. Scientists, defectors, political exiles. They declared war the moment they put a rifle in a civilian's hands," Jack cut in. "They've killed my officers, sabotaged our ships, assassinated envoys. If they wanted peace, they would have spoken before they started spacing our people." Another voice buzzed in. "Some of those people are human." Jack met the speaker's eyes through the feed. So were the people buried in Earth's ash. That ended the debate. The vote passed 9-3. Operation Ashwind was approved. Bell sat behind reinforced glass, wrists chained, silent as the guards relayed the council's decision. He didn't react, didn't blink, just whispered to himself, "It never ends." In the prep bay, Legion troops readied their gear. Some moved with purpose, others hesitated between steps. Rumors spread fast. Civilian targets, mass eradication, another Haleith Prime. Jack walked among them. He didn't give speeches anymore. He gave orders. "Section 7 will drop on the orbital communications towers. No mercy, no messages out. They die in silence. Section 9, power grids. Target infrastructure before you touch a single living thing. And the primary team hits the central Concord Tower, alive or dead. I want their council off the map." A young soldier, private, barely older than Leo had been, raised his hand. "Sir, what if there are kids down there?" Jack looked at him, unreadable. There were kids on Earth. He didn't wait for more questions. 3 days later, the fleet entered the Cygnus Delta system. And there it was. Concord Prime. A lush, blue-gray moon orbiting a gas giant. Rings glittering around it like halos made of ice and sorrow. From space, it looked peaceful, untouched. A paradise. Below the clouds, hundreds of small cities dotted the valleys, forests, and oceans. Most had no weapons, no defense shields, no warships in orbit. The Concord didn't expect a full assault. They thought Jack Hadrien was bluffing. They were wrong. "Launch all units," Jack ordered. The dropships peeled off the black hammer like hornets, descending in formation. Rail cannons rotated into place. Plasma batteries charged. Bombers began atmospheric breach maneuvers. Then came the warning. From inside. The bridge alarms screamed red as internal security locked down Deck 4. Explosions ripped through the fuel bay. Automated doors sealed. Lives screamed out over broken comms. A mutiny. Jack spun toward the security feed. Loyalists of Bell, dozens, maybe more. Mostly junior officers, some engineers. None armored, but all determined. He slammed his fist on the command panel. "Who let them organize?" "Sir, internal chatter's been locked down since Verta 9. They must have coordinated through encrypted line-of-sight signals. We thought they were clean." Jack's eyes blazed. "Seal Deck 4, suck the oxygen out." "Sir?" They made their choice. The airlocks opened. Screams turned to silence. The lights dimmed, and the last spark of rebellion was gone before it could become fire. When the command crew looked back at Jack, no one questioned him. No one spoke, because the silence was louder than anything else. On the surface of Concord Prime, fire bloomed like flowers. Jack touched down in the city's central plaza with Unit 13, what was left of it. His boots hit the marble of a peaceful society that had once held rallies for unity. A fountain nearby spilled over with blood. The conquered tower loomed above him, white, arched, pure. He aimed his cannon at its base and fired. Inside, the Conquered's true leaders huddled around a data table, their robes tattered, their voices frantic. "He came," one whispered. "He actually came. We tried to warn them." Another stood. "He is what we made him. Don't you see? We called him the Dark Star so often we birthed it into reality." Their final message, broadcast seconds before the tower fell, was a flickering hollow of a woman's face. "If you see this, know that vengeance eats itself. It burns even the ones who carry the torch." Jack walked through the rubble of the tower as it smoldered. His team cleared the bodies, checked for survivors. None. He stepped over cracked stone, past shattered data cores, until he reached the command dais. And there it was. The Conquered symbol. 3 interlocking rings, cracked down the middle. He stared at it. For a long time. And for once, his voice trembled. "Why did you make me this?" Back on the black hammer, Bell was pulled from his cell. He stood in front of the view screen as Conquered Prime burned in the distance. Jack stood beside him. Bell looked, just once, then back at Jack. "You were never afraid of becoming the monster." Jack didn't blink. "I was afraid I wouldn't go far enough." The war was over, not because the galaxy declared it finished, but because no one dared fight anymore. Conquered Prime had fallen, its towers, its people, its ideals reduced to rubble and whispers. The 3-ring symbol that once stood for peace and balance now lay broken in ash beneath human boots. Every planet, every moon, every listening outpost watched the feeds, saw Jack Hadrien walk through the flames without flinching, saw the last Conquered broadcast silenced mid-sentence. He didn't gloat, he didn't justify, he just erased. And in that silence, the galaxy decided, no more war, not because of peace, because of fear. Inside the command chamber of the Black Hammer, Jack sat alone. No council, no orders, just him, and a single datapad flashing red with the header, High Command, Post-War Transition Proposal. He read it once, then again. The colonies were calling for a restructure, a demilitarization, the dismantling of Legion 1. His face didn't change. He already knew it was coming. You don't win a war like this and walk away a hero. You walk away like something radioactive, untouchable, feared, and best buried far from civilization. Bell stood in the observation chamber, unchained for the first time in weeks. He watched the stars, arms folded, the view of Conquered Prime's shattered orbit in the distance. Jack entered behind him. They didn't speak for a while. Finally, Bell said, "So? That's it. We won." Jack didn't answer. Bell turned. "You don't feel it, do you?" "What?" "The weight, the cost." Jack walked past him, stopping at the glass. "Every night I feel it," he said. "In the silence, in the dreams, in the still moments when I almost forget what Leo's voice sounded like." Bell's voice softened. "Then why keep going?" Jack's jaw tightened. "Because the only thing worse than becoming the monster was letting them think we wouldn't. Earth's colonies called for an emergency tribunal within a standard week. Every major faction sent envoys, not because they had authority, Jack had made sure of that, but because they wanted closure. The hearings were held aboard a neutral station above Ganymede. Sterile, diplomatic, clean. Too clean. Jack arrived without ceremony, flanked by 2 guards he didn't need. The room was full of eyes. Alien, human, synthetic. They didn't look at him like a criminal. They looked at him like a ghost. The lead adjudicator, a woman from Europa with an artificial voice, stood. "Colonel Jack Hadrien, you stand before this assembly not for punishment, but for clarity. The galaxy wants to understand. Why did you destroy Conquered Prime?" Jack said nothing. Then finally he stepped forward. No one wanted to understand Earth when it burned. No one asked us how we felt when our children died. But now that we've won, now that we've made you afraid, suddenly you want clarity? Murmurs, shifts in chairs. Jack continued. They say I led a war of vengeance. They're right. They say I became what I hated. They're half right. He stepped closer to the center podium. What I hated wasn't the Zarn. It wasn't even the galaxy. It was how easily you forgot us. You watched us burn. You said nothing. Then we reminded you we were still here. Loudly, permanently. The room went still. I won't apologize for that. The adjudicator said nothing for a long time, then simply nodded. This tribunal rules the following. The Legion is to be disbanded. All remaining war assets decommissioned. Jack Hadrien is to step down from command, effective immediately. She paused, but no charges will be filed. The galaxy will remember this not as justice, but as consequence. Jack gave a single nod. He didn't thank her. He turned and walked out. 2 weeks later, the Black Hammer was grounded on Titan's far dock, stripped of weapons, crew dismissed, hangars emptied. Jack stood on the loading ramp one last time. Bell approached, a bag slung over his shoulder. They're offering relocation, new identity. You could start over. Jack didn't answer. Bell stepped closer. You don't have to disappear, you know. You could help rebuild. Teach, advise, be part of something human again. Jack looked up at the sky, Titan's hazy clouds swirling above orange plains. I don't know if I'm human anymore, he said. Not after all this. Bell placed a hand on his shoulder. I think that's why you still are. They didn't say goodbye. They just nodded. Then Bell walked away, and Jack walked the other direction. Months passed. The galaxy moved on. The Zarn remnants vanished into the rim. The conquered scattered into myth. Peace came, not through treaties, but through fear of what happens without it. Jack Hadrien's name was erased from official records. No statues, no medals, no parades, just stories of a man who answered silence with fire. On a backwater moon in the outer belt, in a quiet mining village, a little boy sat drawing stars on a wall with a piece of coal. His mother smiled at him. Who's that? She asked, pointing to the figure beside the stars. The boy shrugged. Dunno, just someone watching. She looked at it, a man in armor, tall and alone, and the stars around him burned. Far from any system that mattered, an old ship floated in the dark, not registered, not armed, just drifting. Inside, a man sat with a cracked holoframe in his hand, a child's drawing inside, a ship, a family, the word home scrawled across the top in a shaky hand. Jack Hadrien closed his eyes, and for the first time since Earth fell, he rested,